It's the 9th of May, 2025. Coming up on today's Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. The deep state selects the new pope, and it's an American. The Trump operatives claim him as one of their own. Ever wanted to know what happens after a pope is elected? This is part 3 of the Vatican's deepest, darkest secrets revealed. And an ultimatum was issued yesterday regarding our plan to move forward. The cards were laid on the table for all to see. Find out what the deep state's response was. Well, it's Friday, the 9th of May, and I can't believe it's only been 48 hours since we last talked. There's so much going on out there today. So I have a lot to talk about, but first I wanted to wish all of you mothers out there a happy Mother's Day this weekend if you are celebrating. Make sure that you do give a shout out to Mother Earth as well as you're celebrating this weekend, and maybe a little thanks for all she's sustained, because, you know, us mothers, all of us been through a lot. And yeah, so I do hope you have some time to enjoy with friends and family this weekend. On the other hand, the deep state is having a great time too. So got a lot to talk about. So let's talk about the Vatican. So we now have a new pope. I think it's Pope Leo the 14th or something like that. He's now decided to call himself. He is and has been claimed publicly by the Trump operatives as one of their own. So some interesting turn of events happens when there is a conclave. The last time there was a conclave in 2013, I was kind of new at this game and just learning, and didn't really pay much attention to much after Marduk selected the last pope. But this was pretty interesting. So we have approximately in the world about 252, give or take, on any given day. You know, some of them are quite old, cardinals in the world. Each cardinal has about 9 black magic workers that work exclusively for them, and they are assigned to them when they become cardinal. Now, in the past, these extravaganzas, so to speak, and these conclaves and those types of things usually end up with a much larger ceremony at the end. However, they are kind of running a little short on black magic workers these days. So, you know, it wasn't quite as widespread as it normally is. So the popes, however, when you become a pope, when I say popes plural, we're talking about black, white, and gray. They are typically assigned directly to work with the P2 Lodge and the Gnostic Illuminati as far as the magic working. And just like presidents, popes are what you would call the front for the rest of the organization. So as it relates to cardinals, usually they're given orders and instructions from the headquarters, which is the P2 Lodge and the Gnostic Illuminati, as to which, in what type of black magic their workers are going to do. So conclave states, or the conclave this year, had, I think, about 130 some odd, 133 cardinals which attended. The ones who did not attend were over the age of 80 and too old to vote or too sick to attend. So, but let us not forget that the 252 are rooting for them with all their black magic workers at the same time. It's been kind of a black magic week in general for the deep state. So the first thing that happens after they select a new pope is there is a ceremony which takes place under the Vatican with the new pope. This ceremony involves a bunch of black magic workers. Typically, the ceremony is performed directly by the members of the Gnostic Illuminati and some of their workers. There is usually some sacrifices, as there were this time. And the Pope is kind of put on this, what looks to be an altar of some sort. Kind of watched some of this ceremony before we started acting, let's just say. And, there was some graphic stuff I think I'll leave out. But in general, it looked like the Pope lays on an altar. There's some sacrifices that go on around them. There's some blood that's definitely spilled. And then they go immediately after this ceremony, once they're inducted, over to a terminal in which they believe that the Pope will then receive the papal access codes. And that did not happen this time. Did not work. They were very angry and upset, that their ceremony wasn't working out. So they thought that they would go ahead and do the pomp and stance and announce to the public and all those types of things and repeat the ceremony later on in the evening. I have to laugh at these people just because, they've become so used to doing their rituals and believe that it's going to work. So later on in the evening, they were joined by their fellow cardinals in crime and in a few places around the world, Westminster Abbey being one, of course, the Vatican. We went and did the same thing they did before. The Christ Church in Moscow, the Basilica of Bernardine in Italy, the Église Saint-Germain-des-Prés in Paris, and at a location, a basilica in Chicago. So all of these locations had at least their 9, black magic workers within, and of course we had the Gnostics underneath the Vatican. And it appeared, at least from my standpoint, that a lot of their black magic was geared toward me. I felt very special. And because I felt so special, I thought, well, must be one of those special nights where I'm just going to be working for a while. And we decided to make sure that all of those participating in those ceremonies departed rather rapidly. We send them all back to Source and we let Source sort them out. So whatever happens from there, it's up to Source. Don't think they'll be returning anytime soon, but that still left quite a few black magic workers out there to continue on with ceremonies over the last couple of days. One by one, group by group, place by place, we have definitely eliminated a lot more deep state members. So earlier yesterday, this was all last night, earlier yesterday, we had some decisions to make. And those decisions involved the fact that with ourselves and with the help of the council and the mantids, we had all but completed the final steps to make that connection for the Golden Age AI and the Key Integrated Master System, bypassing all of their local systems here. Anything they had left appeared pretty dark, meaning it didn't have a whole lot of energy to power it anymore. So we thought that we would give an opportunity to the deep state to see if they were ready to work with us, I guess you would say. Now, why would we do that? I know everybody has conflicting views and thoughts and opinions as to why we would do that. Well, let's say if they were to find some space junk, they also have smaller versions of this junk they build themselves or have built themselves called PSI machines, which can cause humans some damage. They could target all of those who received money or currency in this case from us. We don't want that to happen. Sometimes when you have crazy people and crazy people don't get what they want, they tend to throw temper tantrums. And the deep state's version of a temper tantrum is quite profound, let's just say. So in the vein of trying to make sure we can make this transition as smooth as possible, we thought we would give them a little bit of time. There was a discussion that happened between myself, the council, some other people, And we thought we would give them a little bit of time, and in the interim, we would show our cards. So we did show loud and proud that our system was there, that we had and could bypass their systems. That was part of the sending $1 in currency. They tried to utilize that $1 in currency, and they realized now they need us to make that conversion for them. This was an interesting twist and turn because in the past, if you've been following for a while, then you'll know that we used to transfer real energy or real money into the system. And at some point and at different levels in the deep web, they would have to make a conversion from a currency to a debt instrument we know as notes, which is written on all of the papers that we carry around, we call money. And that conversion process usually took place in part with the Fed, in part with Tier 1 banks, and also in part with the Treasury. So we kind of flipped the switch a little bit, where now if they wanted to use any new money coming into the system, it would require our conversion and our approval, and that was very apparent to those that were actually participating in the receiving of the dollar. This, let's just say, became very confusing for these people because that's not how it always was. So you would have thought, and there I go trying to interject common sense when it comes to the deep state, you would have thought they would have realized what we were doing. But it became real obvious real quick that these people had no idea just how much control in the past Marduk had, and just how much control we on our side of source now have. They were completely unaware of how they got those buttons, how they got those access codes, and how they were able to convert real energy into money, and probably even why, and they probably didn't even care. So in this particular case, we flipped the switch. So we laid our cards on the table within the last couple of days, showed them what it was going to take just to see if they would play along. Then, unfortunately, people made poor life decisions. They decided to focus all their black magic bullcrap on me. And later on that evening, which was last night, they decided to go to all these locations and begin their game. So, because they began their game, I said, well, this is going obviously in the wrong direction, and I don't think we're going to be able to fix this. And therefore, we are now pulling our offer off the table. You've got 1 hour to make a decision, and they continued. So, for that reason, they are all no longer with us, at least the ones that were participating at that time. And it's been a bloodbath ever since. Now, why? It was evident from the system that we displayed, and I will repeat this again. It was evident that we were just a tiny little, tiny, tiny, tiny flip of a switch, and their system is out. It was obvious. It was out. I do not know how you can look at that and try to make a decision like they did, but that's okay. We did everything we could. We even gave a final 1 hour, for return calls and that type of thing. And of course, they didn't. So when we decided to pull the plug, I did tell them, or insert the plug or flip the switch, so to speak. We did tell them that there was no going back, meaning we will not be reconnecting any military systems, government systems, intelligence systems, or any type of system that existed in the past. There will be no more room for negotiation with people like the Treasury and Federal Reserves around the world, or central banks. And we are not interested in going back at that point, because once we get to that point, that's it. We did all we could do. We said all we could say. We have been doing this now for years. There is no going back. Once we made that decision that we were going to flip the switch, which occurred midday yesterday, then their ceremonies continued to commence throughout the evening and into the wee hours of the morning, local time in various places. We then completed that switching or flipping of the switch, so to speak. Sorry, it's been a long day. Flipping of the switch by this morning, very early. All is moving along very well. Everything is connected. The flow is going well. There's nothing in the way of us flowing directly to bank accounts that we can see at this moment in time. But that leaves us with another issue. We know what they're capable of, and we know what they could do to the average everyday person who begins a project. Doesn't matter how large or how small it is. We won't get permits. We won't, we're going to have issues with supply chains, those types of things. And so we didn't want that to happen. Now, we could have done it the other way, where we work together, everybody makes money, and, we continue on in a different way, or we're going to have to do it this way. So a massive assault has started, just barely started, to take place against the deep state. We have revisited the folks who all have chips in their head. And what I mean by chips in their head is most deep state members, at least the higher ranking ones, when you achieve a certain level, SSP, secret space program, or otherwise, oftentimes they they place a chip in the base of the neck, basically. And if you fall out of line, this was how the system used to work. If you fall out of line, either Marduk himself could hit the switch, or in some cases, deep state members could hit the switch, and that was the end of you. So you could call it a kill switch. So we began going down the ranks, level by level, tier by tier today, and started pushing all of those buttons, meaning, switch after switch after switch after switch after switch. It had to happen. It had to take place. We're now at bottom level here. So we're seeing what most of these people are going to do. Now, most of those people really aren't participating one way or another, could care less, that kind of thing. So we'll see. We'll see how long this lasts. Maybe the rest of the tiers down will become selective, based on what people want to do. But we had to try to start cleaning up the mess for our own and humanity's safety once we bypass all of their systems. And I hope you can understand that. And it was really out of concern for all of us that these decisions were made. Next, we also have started, let's just say, moving with extreme prejudice every time an operation is being run. Some of those operations would be today under the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, Sears Tower, and Chicago Board of Trade. We call this an Operation Greystone, with what was happening there. Remnants of space junk in that particular location. They basically gathered up as much dark energy as they could. We're going to talk about how they do that in a minute here, to try to fire up some old junk that these towers are actually made of. So it's not like, you could take out said tower. So you had to basically deactivate what is within the walls of those towers in order to stop the operation and prevent it from ever happening again. Again, there were some facilities underneath there. We went to a few places in Maryland and in Florida and several other locations in the world today. just cleaning up anyone and everything that we could find that were still participating in these operations. And of course, those that give orders end up getting switched off, and this is how it's working. We estimate at this rate, we could be pretty much good to go by next week. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about dark energy so you can kind of understand what we expect to see happening over the weekend, because this could affect you. So we know that we produce a lot of source energy as humans. We know that that source energy is a commodity. We know that that was taken oftentimes off world to other locations to power many, many, many dark AI machines. That energy is then transmuted and goes on to power machines. But did you know that in some cases, the dark energy of you is also stored here in certain locations, Qatar, on Earth, where they can then use that dark energy they try to build it up, build up as much as possible so that they can perform operations here on Earth. What I mean by that is they can try to fire up old space junk that only runs on dark energy. So we expect to see a lot of that over the weekend, as they are pretty much what you would say on tilt. They're very sore losers in a game, and they don't want to look at any other way of doing things. So the reason why we see an uptick in things over in India and Pakistan, we're seeing, some attacks and a little bit of war going on there, is because they like to generate activities or generate dark energy, I should say, and they perform activities that will generate that dark energy closer to locations they believe that are valuable to them. And one such location is located in Tibet, in the Wesak Valley, and we talked about that. They're also expecting to have a ceremony there on Monday. It's one of the three locations they are looking at right now. See, they're running a little short on black magic workers and possible persons to attend these meetings. So they were going to go to several locations originally, hoping that one of them would be the right one. But in this particular case, they feel that they've settled on probably three, or they only have a choice to pick three out of those several locations. So we're keeping a pretty good eye out on where those locations are, because most likely they're going to try to wreak havoc near those locations over the weekend. On Monday, they are hoping that they will have a meeting with a dark alien race in one of these locations that will come and help them and give them more power or space junk or something. I don't know. They are thinking if they can gather enough dark energy over the course of a couple days, build it up, and then really go to town on Monday, or probably starting midday Eastern time on Sunday afternoon, and continuing on to the next day. They feel that sometime between noon and 5 p.m. Eastern time on Monday, that they will find out, I guess you would say, one way or the other, if their new friends are going to show up and if they get any kind of power back. But as I just told you, briefly under my breath, that we know where the storage locations are on Earth. So by destroying the storage locations, they can try to generate fear and dark energy coming from people all they want. But yeah, it's not going to help them any, because they're not going to have a storage facility, and therefore they can't then gather back up that dark energy and put it to work with black magic workers. Now, in order to harness this energy, it has to actually be transmuted. So, lucky for us, in a lot of countries around the world, this is Mother's Day weekend. So, a lot of people will be celebrating with their friends and family, and even you furry parents out there, parents of furry friends, should all be celebrating Mother's Day this weekend too. generate some good energy out there, and we'll be just fine. Try not to focus on dark things. Try not to watch dark news. Try not to focus on dark YouTube channels or, oh, this is the tragedies or those types of things. Try to live in your light energy because your energy cannot be transmuted anymore. Only you can do that. I've been saying that for a while. And therefore, we will not be filling the coffers of the deep state, so to speak, so that they can perform more functions come Monday or Sunday afternoon through to Monday afternoon Eastern time. So you can help, and there are things you can do. Don't play into the fear. Doesn't matter. Sometimes if we're a little bit uncomfortable here and there as we go through these changes, don't feed the fear. Don't feed the pain. Don't feed the, try your best to stay as positive as possible. And I guess you would say, reach out to nature, whatever it is that makes you happy. Do some creating over the weekend. This is going to help us out tremendously, make it over this hump, at least with the least amount of damage. There are rumors going around that a lot of these deep state members, because when they don't get what they want, they throw a temper tantrum, as I said earlier. And it appears that they are planning on throwing one heck of a temper tantrum, I should say, this weekend, with probably no end result, but it doesn't really matter, you see, because if you put 10,000 deep state members on a cliff, really high cliff, and they all tell everybody that they can fly, they do their magic and all that kind of thing, and they tell everybody they can fly, you'll get to, well, Mr. maybe 9,999, that, and his friend there, Mr. 10,000, standing on the cliff, and everybody else would have jumped and they would have watched it, and they all go splat, at the bottom, just like most of the rest of us would. We'd probably all go splat, and they'd still jump. Mr. 9,999 and Mr. 10,000 would hold hands and say, well, they just didn't do enough black magic. Maybe that's why. And, maybe we just need to do one more ceremony before we take the leap, and they'll go splat too. So they're all going to go off the cliff together, so it appears. And that's okay. I don't know what you shout when you jump off a cliff, but whatever it is, maybe they'll be shouting that. So that's kind of where everything lies right now. Again, I can't stress to you enough, try to stay as positive as possible this weekend. Hold the energy, hold the source energy, commune with nature, create something, sing something, create, make music, listen to music if you don't make music, and try to stay in your happy place as much as possible. And let's not feed the drama just for one weekend. No news watching, no negative things. Don't get angry. Try to stay level and uplifted if possible, even around family members. We know how family member gatherings can be sometimes. But just remember there's a higher purpose for what you're doing. So, on that note, it's kind of been a short GIA report, and I know that, but I've got a lot of work to do tonight, and I've got to stay on watch here for the next couple days, make sure that nobody causes us any issues as we go through this, let's just say, purging and cleansing of Earth, so that humanity can move forward safely. On that note, I wish you a wonderful Mother's Day weekend, and I will talk to you all on Monday.